Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for our special meeting. We'll be working on our goals today. Let the minutes reflect that we have a quorum. All council members are present. I'll call the meeting to order, and I am going to shift it over to the city manager. We will take public comment after 3A. We have one public comment on this item, so once we do 3A, we will open public comment up for that item. City Manager Kimball, thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Good afternoon. I'm for the audience and those who are watching, I'm Yvonne Kimball. I'm the city manager, and it is my pleasure today to introduce the facilitator, Mr. Michael Cauldron, who sat next to me. Mr. Cauldron is engaged with us to help us with the council goal setting, the entire process. He's very uniquely qualified for being a facilitator for us. And he calls the Exterior Bay Area his home. Not only that, he had a very long and successful career at the city of San Luis Obispo. After successfully being their community development director and assistant city manager, he retired and he formed his own consulting firm where he can continue to help his clients to serve the communities. A few months ago, he was the interim community development director for Morro Bay. So he's really knows our culture and knows our citizens, works well with staff, works well with the council. And it feels great to have Mr. Cauldron helping us with this process. And today this session is perhaps one of the last sessions on with this process. I felt that throughout the process, Mr. Cauldron, he listens and he cares. So I have all the confidence in Mr. Cauldron to facilitate us facilitate this process for us. With that, I'm gonna kick it over to Mr. Cauldron for a presentation.
All right, well, thank you, Manager Kimball. I really appreciate the introduction, and good afternoon, City Council. We'll get the mic dialed in, and I'll start the presentation. Okay. Well, we're going to start off just laying out what the agenda is for this afternoon. This is really going to be a working meeting, and so want to start by just laying out what the process is. First, we'll talk about goal setting in general and what we've been involved with since February, gathering information and doing the best we can to present the City Council with a recommendation today that you can take action on. It may not be exactly what is printed in the staff report. We don't expect that. That's why this is a working meeting. We're going to work through your questions and work through the challenges of setting goals for the next 2 years. I want to talk a little bit about effective goals and objectives and why we do this, just to help everybody understand what the point of this is in advance of the budget process. We'll review the recommendations that are included in the agenda report. And then I want to explain a little bit about what my role is after public testimony. I'll be engaging the City Council and essentially guiding the conversation. So I have a slide where I can explain so the public understands like why I'm so involved in your conversation. And then from after public testimony, the council will have their opportunity to deliberate and to work through the questions in front of you. All right, so starting off with an overview of what we're doing here. What is a goal-setting process? And this process was actually kicked off in 2018. The City Council adopted a resolution, and this is a strategic planning framework that the City Council is working under. And What makes it strategic is that you're starting off today adopting goals. These are goals that should be in effect for at least 2 years, up to 4 years. But you want to think long-term about what those goals are and what we're trying to accomplish for the city with the identification of goals. Objectives are also part of this, and you have recommendations for objectives that support those goals in the agenda report. And those are 2-year items. They advance the goals that you've adopted. But the really strategic part about this, or what's important about it, is this is happening in advance of the annual budget process. And so with those goals and objectives established, it is a strong indication to the community, to the city staff, and the public in general in terms of what your priorities are so that the budget can be shaped around those priorities. And this process is also strategic because it included careful consideration of the financial forecast and ongoing workload. So in February, the City Council had a presentation of the forecast, had a presentation on the status of all the existing goals and objectives and what the projects are that are currently in flight. I do have that information here to share if the City Council wants to review the full list of items that staff is currently working on. But of course, your financial constraints and the ongoing workload are 2 of those important things you have to consider when you're thinking about new goals and taking on new work. And as I talked about at the community forum, the thinking there is that we can do anything, but we can't do everything. And so keeping in mind what the forecast says in terms of future resources and what the current workload is will help ensure success. All right, so moving on to public engagement, it's really important that the public understand exactly what's going on with goal setting, but that they have a chance to participate, that they have a chance to provide input. And this process is designed to do that. Very successful survey this year with over 500 responses, with a huge percentage of those, almost 90%, being people who live and work, or who just live or live and work in the city of Morro Bay. There's also advisory body engagement, including with the Recreation and Parks Commission, and I have the recommendation from them, but that just came to the City Council in email form today. And then the Community Forum on March 13th, and this graphic kind of highlights some of the activities that were available at the Community Forum for people to provide input. There wasn't huge participation in the Community Forum in terms of the audience, but everybody who came did participate, and I think we got good information from that event. And finally, tonight we are here at the goal setting workshop, and it is a special meeting of the City Council, but to think of it as a workshop I think is helpful. Yeah. All right. So a little bit about goals and objectives. Goals are these long-term, inspiring, but possible and future-focused statements. They should really be a vision of what the end state is, what you're trying to accomplish with the work programs that you'll adopt as part of the budget. Generally, they should be long-term in the sense that they can last up to 4 years. However, in practice, the City Council has revisited their goals every 2 years, and that makes perfect sense too. The objectives are action-oriented, measurable, time-bound. So there are a number of objectives in the recommendation tonight and in the agenda report. And as we attach different objectives to the goals when we go through our process here after public testimony, I have all of the detailed information as well that I can share behind those objectives. But I think for a lot of tonight, we're going to be talking about the goal topics and the objective topics by name, and then as time allows, we'll be able to dive into the content to a greater degree and even get into some wordsmithing potentially to make sure that everything is as you would like to see it. Well, I'll get to that on the next slide. Okay. So I'm going to go through the recommendations and give you a sense of what I'm talking about in terms of those goal statements. So the first recommendation is for economic vitality and fiscal health. as a goal. It's different this year in that the two are combined. And from the public input that we received and from just my knowledge of the way fiscal health works in a community, it's intrinsically tied to economic vitality. And so it seemed like coordinating those approaches would be helpful in a goal statement. So the goal statement is a vibrant and active business community supported by coordinated strategies for economic vitality and fiscal health that create the conditions for individual business success and the long-term fiscal health of the city. And then there are objectives associated with that, including increasing events, an analysis of the general fund reserve, the long-term financial plan, which is an activity proposed by the Finance Department that I see as very important for long-term fiscal health and for making decisions today that will contribute to long-term fiscal health. And then planning and building permit services is something that also came out of survey responses. Infrastructure resiliency is the second goal that's recommended, and the statement is an infrastructure program that includes regular maintenance to prolong the life of existing infrastructure while implementing a capital improvement plan that prioritizes new projects in alignment with available resources. And we want to be realistic with the projects that get put into a capital improvement plan, so it's always about alignment with the funding that is available, and that connects to the previous goal because your long-term financial forecast and your 10-year forecast and your long-term financial plan will really help you make solid decisions as it relates to funding of capital improvement projects, but also your staff resources, because you can program all of the projects in the world, but you've got to have the staff to deliver those projects. So those things work in tandem. And the objectives are the 5-year CIP, which is an important planning document that a lot of jurisdictions benefit from, a focus on infrastructure maintenance, and as well as the harbor revetments, which have been studied, and Harbor is interested in looking into how to actually deliver projects to support the harbor revetments. And the final goal that's in the recommendation, and this is a little bit of a catch-all, but quality of life was so important in the survey, in terms of the survey responses, and even in the letters to the City Council in the lead-up to today's meeting, that there are a number of objectives that I think are fair to support quality of life. So a city that maintains a high quality of life for its residents through core services such as public safety, while also prioritizing environmental stewardship, community engagement, and historic preservation. So those are some of the objectives. The homeless outreach, which in fact was successful from the standpoint of it's less of a, what came through in the survey is that homelessness is less of a concern, still one of the top 5 concerns that the community has, but it went from number 1 to number 5, so that's a nice shift to see based on all the work that police and others have done in that area. Fire department improvements, there's a standards of cover document that's near completion that will have recommendations and for improvements and other changes that the fire chief will be interested in sharing with the City Council. The waterfront master plan is in progress, major grant from the Coastal Commission on that one, and then historical preservation, because that is something that has already been initiated to some degree through the work of the Morro Bay Historical Society, and the Planning Commission has been looking at that. But it was also something that came through the survey. So in terms of quality of life, there are a lot of objectives that could fit under that banner if the council chooses to set that as a goal. Just want to highlight that there are additional objectives for those recommended goals. Workforce housing is one that has been highlighted in terms of how it connects to and what its benefit for economic vitality is, whether that's more shoppers or more workers. Keeping them here in Morro Bay is a good strategy. Specifically, the maintenance plan for infrastructure resiliency, which is something that I know Public Works would would like to see prioritized, but also not just the maintenance plan itself, but also the front end of the maintenance plan in terms of the customer service request form on the city's website and how people engage with Public Works to request maintenance projects. Water supply, important for infrastructure resiliency, and then police workforce. There are recommendations from the police chief on that front, as well as emergency response and coordinated EMS. So those are all spelled out in attachment 1A to the agenda report in more detail, and I can bring up any of that information when the council has questions or we want to discuss anything in more detail. Of course, there are a lot of alternative goals and objectives, maybe too many, right? I think one thing that I heard from city council members and from the public is that the existing slate of goals and objectives is maybe too much, too confusing. There's so much there, it's hard to know really what is the priority. I'll note that the Chamber of Commerce recommended just 2 goals to the City Council. That's certainly an option that the City Council has. There's a recommendation for 3, but the council could easily land on 2 to ensure that there is a focus on those items. And it isn't that if these items, these objectives are not included in the goals, that doesn't mean they're not going to get done. They will get done as resources permit, and you'll see that through the budget process. But there does have to be prioritization, and so from that standpoint, the goals and objectives that the City Council selects through its deliberations today will be primary, and the rest will be addressed through the normal budget process. Just to highlight the Recreation and Parks Commission, Attachment 2 includes all of the advisory body input, but this came in today, so I wanted to highlight it to a greater degree. And then I want to jump to the facilitator's role. So my goal today is to identify consensus or majority support for recommended goals. And really it's consensus. I really want to work with the City Council today as we go through these things to identify where everybody can agree on what the priorities are. That isn't always possible. But we do want to see if it is, right? We do want to test to see that consensus is possible. Secondly, going to identify going to help the City Council identify the additional goals and objectives that are supported. So again, no expectation that the recommendation hit the nail on the head and that you're all just happy with it. Certainly expect deliberation, questions, and part of my role will be to track those deliberations and then to share back wording for goals and objectives as we make our way through that. One of the things we're going to do is a straw poll. So that will be an effort to sort of cut to where the agreement exists between what the top goals may be, and we'll be able to do that process fairly quickly after public testimony, and then tabulate, and from there we'll really be able to dive into the discussion. So next up is any questions that the council might have since the presentation is concluding, and then we'll have public testimony as par for the course on this item. Mayor, based on the time available that we have today, I don't know if you want to set a time limit on public testimony, but that is your decision. And then after public testimony, we will move into deliberations. And we'll start off with some discussion to make sure that the straw poll has all of the goals listed that you're interested in. If not, we will add to this, and then we'll go ahead and conduct that poll. But first, the questions of the council. Anything from this presentation or otherwise that you want to ask of me right now before we get started?
Thank you, Mr. Caldron. One of my questions was, and I think you may have touched on it earlier, is How do we follow previously established actions that we're doing right now so that the public is aware that we are continuing them? It's not like they're dropping off into the ethers
Right.
as we go into this process and add to
Right.
the work plan.
Yeah, I'll say that, well, first I can share what that list looks like. So remaining projects, quite a large number of these, but under public infrastructure, economic vitality, housing and homelessness response, community engagement, these are all items that are ongoing. And then these key projects are also ongoing. A lot of these projects are expected or intended to wrap up relatively shortly. So these goals, again, 2 to 4 years is the timeframe you're thinking of, and a lot of the stuff on this list is going to be shorter term or will be part of, maybe is already funded for the most part. If that isn't the case, if there's something long-term on here that hasn't even started and it's part of a current goal, it would be fine, it would be normal and smart to include that in the goals going forward as well. Because although these goals will continue to be tracked through the goal-setting process or through the budget process and through the normal reporting on goals, if it's important enough, it should be included.
Yeah, and I guess I just want to follow that up with, because some of the ones that were mentioned, like the WAMPAC, we're already embarking on that.
Right.
We're already in, we've got the harbor revetment
Yep.
already in progress, so some of the ones that were mentioned. So I just want to make sure that I'm understanding this correctly, that they're already in progress, they're
Yes.
already on the staff's mind. We wouldn't necessarily need to put them on this new planning, or would we?
That's right. You don't need to unless it hasn't, it hasn't begun but I think these are all things that have initiated. So you don't need to include them again. The status is important to the city staff. And as I discussed at the beginning, you do have constraints. You have constraints in terms of what the available budget is, and you have constraints in terms of what staff is already working on and what their capacity is. And so that list does include a lot that staff is already working on. Yeah. Okay. So if you want to call for public testimony now, then we can.
Thank you, Mr.
Yeah.
Cauldron. With that, we will move to public comment. The same as the regular meetings is 3 minutes. I'll ask the city clerk to keep the timer, and I have one speaker slip, and after that, you're welcome to come up, and that's going to start with Michael Wambach. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Mayor and Council. Great to see you, and great work on the goal setting. Excuse me. I've just received a tourism economic report that we partnered with Visit SlowCal and Tourism Economics, and I just wanted to share that data as we're going through goal setting, and also for us on the tourism side, set a benchmark for us. Tourism impact to Morro Bay included about 760,000 visitors this year, up about 3.6% from last year and up about 1% from 2019, our peak travel period. Direct visitor spend into Morro Bay was about $194 million, with a direct GDP of about $110 million and serving about 1,700 jobs within Morro Bay. Overall economic impact into the area was $280 million. That includes indirect and indirect spends also on the visitors traveling. What was interesting to me on this is they gave us a breakdown on the type of spend into Morro Bay. About 24% of that was to lodging of $47 million. 23% or $46 million was into food and beverage. About 19% or $36 million was into retail, and then another 17% into recreation of $33 million, and then 17% to $32 million into transportation, showing that we have a very healthy ecosystem of tourism and a healthy business collective that is serving the tourism industry. I just wanted to share that with you, that we received it. I also have copies for the council if they'd like to have it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
let's not be shy. Betty Winholtz, a couple of things. First of all, I was handed this list of signatures from Morro Bay people. We support the city of Morro Bay, making it a goal to acquire the Morro Bay Elementary campus. Respectfully, there's some signatures listed. I'll pass it over. For myself, I want to say that in the goals that I acknowledged in my email, that I tried to do no more than 1 or 2 per department because they have their regular business and they need to focus on their regular business. I do want to comment on goal number 1, which talked about business health and business community. And as a resident, I think I would like for you to focus on the city's budget and the city's health. And I know it's interdependent, but your money should be spent here and with us, not supporting businesses per se. And it even talked about individual businesses. And regarding goal number 2, for me, it's streets, 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 streets. You spent good money last year. We're trying to maintain our status. It's so nice to drive down a street that's not got, and I can't wait till you stripe the streets. That's going to be really nice. And hopefully you'll spend another $2 or more million this coming year on streets. And regarding goal number 3, which is quality of life, I think Morro Elementary is the thing that's in our face about that. If we let that go and we get 250 housing units on that piece of property, that will destroy our downtown and the way our neighborhoods are. So I really encourage you to support in whatever way you can, working with the community to acquire that piece of property in some form. I am part of the Parks and Rec Commission. Those things flash so fast up here, I don't even know what was reported as what was said, so maybe we could have that slide back up again so we could look and see what was reported by Park and Rec's Commission. And I think other than that, good luck. Mm-hmm.
Good evening. My name is Dina Lundquist. I'm with your Morro Bay Chamber of Commerce. I wanted to comment today on driving the financial health of our economic development and how imperative that is. Our city's financial health is directly tied to the financial success of our businesses. You're not just supporting business, we're engineering financial resilience for Morro Bay. As I read through some of the public comments before today's meeting, a lot of folks wanted small town atmosphere not to change. And I think that's great. I think we should honor our past and look at some of the opportunities that Morro Bay Elementary can provide. But we also need to live in the present. We need to support our business community and make sure that they are not only surviving, but they are thriving. And we also need to look for the future by planning for business health, expansion, longevity, addressing the needs of our changing communities that will be in 5 or 10 years from now, just not right now. If we're not proactive, we're going to be reactive, and we definitely don't want to do that. The financial health means to the chamber increasing our sales tax revenue, reducing our commercial vacancy rates, creating sustainable business growth, and maximizing every economic opportunity. Precision-driven strategies such as business survival and growth, intensive first-year business support, targeted resources that directly impact the bottom line of our business community, and interventions to prevent business failures. Business revenue-generating tactics such as events that were highlighted today and that our community would love to see. The chamber wants to engage in that 100%. Those are very labor-intensive and very expensive. We can do those by collaborating with our other nonprofits in the community and with the city, and we're doing that right now, working with the city and some of our other nonprofit partners to come up with not just good events, but great events. Events that honor our community and drive traffic into our businesses. But these events need to last more than one day. They need to last weeks. They can't just be a shot in the arm. They need to sustain that traffic. Strategic business partnerships such as the City of Morro Bay, collaborative approach with our Visit Morro Bay, make a unified economic development strategy. You could do this without the chamber and without Visit Morro Bay, but it would be very hard. And it would be very hard for the chamber to do this without you in Visit Morro Bay. We're a lot of intelligent people. Let's put our brains and our tactics together to maintain our community in a strong and efficient way. Thank you.
Hello, good afternoon. Nicole Dorfman. Thank you all for doing what you're doing up there and really working for the betterment of our town. It's much appreciated by me and my family. And speaking about the quality of life, which is something that we all value, I think having lived in many different places throughout the United States and even internationally, the quality of life here is amazing. I mean, we love it here. My sister and her husband just came to visit, and they're getting ready to move here. They just couldn't believe how peaceful it is, how beautiful, how healthy. And so I feel like that is our strength. When we talk about marketing, when we talk about these things that other people have already spoken about, what is unique to Morro Bay? What sets us apart? The first thing that comes to me is our natural beauty and the access to the estuary, to the sea lions, to the otters. It's so easy. It's not that easy to get like right in nature like that in other places. Classic California. I think that's should be kind of the blinking red lights to get people here. I think another idea is a meet in the middle campaign. We're right in between LA and San Francisco. Meet in the middle for a game of golf, meet in the middle for Christmas, you know, whatever it is. But what makes Morro Bay unique? There are many, many beach towns. So let's play to our strengths. I want to give a caution on the paid parking, and I know that's something y'all have been thinking about. I just heard something just the other day on I think there was a TV section, or I saw it on YouTube, that LA is losing tens of millions of dollars through their paid parking program. It's a disaster. So somebody asked, well, what's your answer? Oh, we're just gonna have to ticket a whole lot more. And that's not a real friendly thing to do. So anyways, caution on the paid parking. I imagine that it can be done correctly, but it can also be done really poorly. That just ends up costing us more money. I also stand with the folks that see a tremendous opportunity for our town and the Morro Elementary property. I think we should move as quickly as possible, in fact, to change the zoning there. High-density housing on that property, I think, would destroy the classic California town that we have now. I think there could be other places for high-density housing, or maybe not. I mean, medium-density housing, I don't know. I don't think that is the right place. I think we want to encourage people to come here and do outdoor activities like soccer and whatnot. But anyways, you guys are doing an amazing job. I'm really glad to be here. Thank you for not industrializing our town, for the BESS ordinance, for keeping the offshore wind people at bay. Really appreciate it.
Anyone else for public comment?
Hello, council, staff. Judy Setting. Our Morro Elementary property is important to our community. In an effort to preserve it for the benefit of our prosperity and due to hasty proceedings by the school district, it is important that we invest time and money towards taking possession of it sooner than later. In researching solutions, it has come to my attention that the property is zoned high-density residential. I understand this designation is relatively new and part of Plan Morro Bay. I believe this designation is in direct conflict with the goal in Morro Bay's Plan Morro Bay zoning code diagnosis to preserve our small town character, page 36. We are a small town, and that is okay. It is the very thing that draws so many visitors to our area. Our town's square footage, and infrastructure cannot support high-density housing and at the same time keep our small town charm. I found on Legal Clarity's website that the implementation of California's density bonus law often encounters legal challenges, primarily from disputes over its interpretation and the balance between state mandates and local control. Local governments sometimes resist the law, arguing it undermines their zoning authority and community planning efforts. This tension frequently leads to litigation, as developers may challenge local decisions that deny or unduly restrict the density bonuses and incentives that they are entitled to under the law. I surmise there is the appearance that high-density laws favor developers not what's best for a town built on its small-town character. We can maintain a healthy residential balance by providing low, moderate, and medium housing. Our population is 70% seniors, which means we must plan housing around them. Maintenance, property taxes, and utilities are some of the issues that prompt seniors to find alternate housing. Senior housing, like we have on Main Street, developed on the Morrow Elementary property, will free up small homes in Morro Bay for young families. For the Morrow Elementary property, the community will benefit from land use designation changes that support medium housing, public institutional, and open space recreation. These three things will accomplish several needs: new facilities for our police department and city hall, rental space for existing private charter schools, and maintain the history use of our well-used soccer field. Will you please pursue changing the land use designation and put together a plan for how the property can best support our needs? Thank you for your time and all that you do for Morro Bay and keeping it a small town with charm. Thank you.
Anyone else for public comment? Come on up. We're on a limited time here, so if you know you're going to come up and speak, please step forward.
Hi, Susan Stewart, business owner in Morro Bay, moved here in 1988. Just wanted to point out that Carla and I both had children at Morrow Elementary School at the same time, and in those years we had 2 full elementary schools. My daughter, I think, was in the last year that Morrow was open, and then Del Mar was our only elementary school in town. So we're losing a population of children, and I think partly we're losing a population of children because we don't have housing. We don't have starter homes for families. Lovely to think of people wanting to move here, but can they find the housing, and especially if they're young folks with kids starting out. So the idea of building housing on the Morrow Elementary property doesn't scare me quite so much. Medium to high density, if they're small homes, it's a huge property, leaving space for the soccer fields and playground areas would only make sense if you're trying to build a place for kids and families to be. Also, really appreciate the idea of perhaps senior housing. But this town and its character, it is aging, and it wasn't always that way. It was a town of young people and families and fishermen and farmers and artists, huge artist community. So I think we can embrace all of that. I think we can keep the building. I love the old school building. I think it would be a great community center. I think we have really important things as a city to look at in our goals. And yes, the business community is important because, as we heard, that's providing, aside from property tax, the bulk of the income for the city to keep all these programs and things going. So good luck with your deliberations. Really appreciate all of you and all that you do, and hope the community continues to support all of the community. So, go eat at the restaurants, go shop at the stores. When your families come to visit, have them stay at one of the hotels, or, we all have to work together to make it work. Thank you.
Hello, thank you for what you do. I just want to talk about 3 things quickly. About the paid parking, I don't know how many of you followed the paid parking debacle in Paso Robles. It was, the citizens of Paso Robles were up in arms about it. They were thinking, yeah, we're going to get money from the tourists. But what happened was the businesses that are located in the downtown Paso Robles quit getting business from the locals. Many of the locals quit going there because they refused to pay the parking. So yes, they have a lot of tourist industry, but as soon as the paid parking stopped, the local businesses had a 40% increase in their business. So if you are in favor of the businesses we have down on the Embarcadero and downtown, then don't penalize anyone for going shopping there. It really is a wash when it comes to it, when you take the money and then you have to have somebody look after who's parking and who gets fined and all that kind of stuff. Number two, I read that there was a consideration of forced chipping and forced vaccination for people's animals or pets. I am totally against that. I have an indoor cat. She is chipped, but she doesn't need to be vaccinated. I just watched a whole thing where a veterinarian was saying how terrible it is that by law he must give the same size shot for a vaccine, whether the dog weighs 50 pounds or 5 pounds, and he has seen animals die. So please don't make people have to do things when they have their animals in their own house. I mean, let's have some freedom, at least with our animals. I mean, if they're out on the street, that's a different thing. But I don't want to have to do that. So anyway, I don't think it should be forced. And on the other subject, I want to talk about vacation rentals. There's those that are licensed and there's those that are not, and people trying to have parties and stuff like that. And maybe there is a licensed one that has too many people making noise. I would like to suggest that we have an ordinance here in town that has more teeth regarding noise problems. So I brought the noise standards. It's for San Luis Obispo, and they go after the owner of the house. And if there is a noise disturbance and the police have to come out, then it's written up. And then under their community department, they keep track of that, and they get fined increasingly. So who can I give this to?
Thank you to City Clerk. Thanks, Cindy. Thank you.
Good evening, Council and Mayor. You're probably tired of reading what I think, because I sent you a couple of emails about it. What disappoints me is this audience. It's 3 o'clock in the afternoon when it started. How many people are really able to be here to discuss one of the most important things that goes on in this town, how we want it to be? Please, make these kinds of meetings so everybody can attend. Sunday afternoons, I read that other cities in the county do some of their best finding out what the population likes by having their meeting on Sunday afternoon. Something to think about. Thank you for what you do.
Hi, Karen Aguilar, Morro Bay. I'd like to piggyback on the issue about paid parking. I was on a parking committee a few years back when they wanted to impose this on Embarcadero, and I hear it's coming back. I hear now the idea is possibly having people pay for parking out at the Rock, where they have some of the nicest, most uneven land to drive over, especially during the wintertime. And I think people would probably start saying, well, this should be blacktopped, so now there's going to be a cost for that. The other thing about doing it out there is people will say, no problem, we'll just park on the Embarcadero and GAFCO won't have any more parking, or Front Street will have no more parking. And it'll just bleed down into the Embarcadero and it'll just get worse. Or people will just say altogether, if we have parking in Embarcadero, hey, we'll just go up to Cayucas. It's free up there. People need time and have some kind of control over their own lives, I guess. And it's just getting worse and worse and worse. I will tell you, I'll share with you, though, there is something that's kind of good about stuff like this. In San Luis, when they decided to get rid of the first hour of free parking, we stopped paying for parking in San Luis downtown. I'm not going to tell you where our fishing hole is, but there's a street that we go and park at about 6 blocks away, and we walk. So we used to be paid parkers. Is that a way to say it? We used to pay. Now we don't. So in what Cindy was saying is so very true, and I would like to also piggyback on her. I got to know some of the businesses down in Paso Robles when I was working there for a while, and a lot of the employees were getting ticketed. They would park because they had to get into their job, and then they would, I gotta go move because I'm gonna get hit. And they would have to move every 2 hours, okay? And boy, if anybody was so grateful that that was stopped, were the people who were making minimum wage trying to get a living, and they were having to have to move around a lot. So I know it's a problem. I know parking is a problem, but I kind of like the idea of encouraging more businesses and more events and bringing money in that way and offering free parking than going into the, well, everybody has paid parking, so we should too. So anyway, that's my 2 cents. Thanks.
Hi, I'm Margaret Carmen, and I want to ditto on that about parking, because I wish somebody would do the stats on how much money San Luis Obispo's paid between changing the signs when they did Sunday parking, and then they had credit card meters, and then they got rid of those, and then they had a kiosk. And a lot of people aren't going to stop with kiosks. They've got mobility issues and they can't go down. And I just think you're going to spend a lot of money on the upkeep of parking versus what you're going to get from it. And I just want to reiterate, thank you. Nicole Dorfman said a lot of what I would like to say, but she said it beautifully and calmly, so I won't. But it's our quality of life. And I'm so glad we have all your beautiful faces taking care of our quality of life in Morro Bay. And I don't think you're voting on this, but I just want to say, don't go above your 25 feet. No matter what a developer says is a public benefit, it's not going to be a public benefit if we get turned into ugly. I never want to go downtown San Luis Obispo again. And I had a home office there for 20 years, and I don't even want to drive there. And we can't have that happen in Morro Bay. Another goal is use less consultants. It costs us a lot of money, and they're coming in here and they don't know what we want in Morro Bay. And I don't know if it's still on there, but please take, your other goals said something about offshore wind, and that's got to go off your goal list. And I'm all for keeping Morro Bay Elementary and everything everybody else has said. And thank you. Hey, only a minute and a half.
Thank you, Margaret. Anyone else for public comment on the goals? AGP, are there any raised hands in the queue?
No, Madam Mayor, there are no raised hands in the queue.
Thank you. If there's no other public comment, I will close public comment and bring it back to council. Any questions from any of that? No? Mr. Cauldron, back to you.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll just take a minute to review a little bit more closely. The RPC input, Recreation and Parks, as requested, was collaborate with the school district on child care services, especially the TK transitional kindergarten program, develop a comprehensive community activity guide, which is something that's consistent with under the community engagement objective, partner with local agencies, service organizations to enhance the Light a Boat Parade, which is consistent with events. So these are very much consistent with some of the objectives that are highlighted in the recommendation and in the alternatives. In addition, RPC strongly supports City Council's continued investigation to acquire Morrow Elementary property for the purposes of maintaining the soccer field usages as well as preservation of the historical building. And the RPC supports the maintenance effort at city's park facilities and the Morrow Rock area. RPC also proposes city considering adding an exercise trail in one of the city parks. So just want to highlight that since we got to RPC last on the list, and this couldn't be included in the agenda report. Okay, so next up is the straw poll, and I have this up on the screen so that members of the public understand exactly what we're asking the City Council to do. And I want to review the instructions with you carefully and answer any questions that you have before we launch into it. So the objective here is to identify where there's consensus and goals, and in order to do that, we're going to use this scale. The scale is number 5 is a top priority item for you. Number 4 is an important priority, and number 3 is a priority. So these are different scales of priorities. A number 2 would be something that you would like to do. You would like to be a priority, but resources don't currently exist for it, or you think it's not a good trade-off, and so you would give that a 2. And then for 1, also important, but something maybe to consider into the future. Now you have 15 points, essentially, to distribute across these goal topics as you see fit. So you can choose 3 of those goal topics and give them all 5 points. You can go 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, which equals 15. There's a lot of different ways to equal 15, but you're spreading the 15 points how you see fit. So that could be as few as 3 of the goals. It could be, you could give 2 of the goals 5 and 5 of them 1, for example. So if you thought really only 2 goals met your priority, your definition of priority, then that might be a way to spend your 15. Each of you have your ballots up there, but it's also on the screen so that members of the public can understand. And then the goal topics are the ones that are listed in the agenda report, but there are also blanks at the bottom of the page. And so what we want to do is go down the line, and ask any questions that you might have at this point, but also if you would like a different goal topic added to this list, we'll talk about that and then have you each write that goal topic onto your sheet so that we can account for it. Councilmember Lefebvre.
On some of these goals, at least for instance, the goal revenue enhancement and economic vitality, I think they're somewhat similar. So, I mean, I rate those very high priority, but I don't, if I'm only going to do up to 15, it's going to be hard for me to, do that. You know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, I know what you're saying. And the reason that that was done was because certainly economic vitality and fiscal health were very important through the survey, but also revenue enhancement was on its own right. And so just depending on where what the council feels like is the most important thing to focus on, you might choose revenue enhancement and have only objectives under there that are, specific to increasing the city's revenue. Whereas fiscal health, economic vitality, it's more holistic. It's really more about long-term planning and putting the city in a position to have that fiscal health to be able to do long-term planning for capital projects. I will say that the recommendation is for economic vitality and fiscal health. Revenue enhancement is included simply to reflect some of the feedback that we had received over time. But, based on that, I can say, well, I think you should put your eggs in the basket of fiscal health and economic vitality, but it's your choice in terms of how you want to have that discussion.
If we're able to add goal topics, could we not reduce them or combine them?
Sure.
Because I agree. I think that revenue enhancement and economic vitality and fiscal health should be combined.
I mean, if we, economic vitality and fiscal health is combined.
No, with revenue enhancement.
We can do that right now if there's a consensus.
I would like to have that done.
Yeah.
I see everybody nodding their head. So that's how we're going to roll today. We're going to find consensus quickly and move through that. So feel free to cross off revenue enhancement from your sheets, and that'll reduce the number that you have to vote on. Now, Councilmember Lefebvre, do you have any that you would like to add?
No, I think they're pretty, broad.
Good, thank you.
Okay.
And that is the intent, for them to be broad. And again, there are a lot of objectives that can fit under the different goals. So, Councilmember Landrum, would you like to add any goals? Is there anything that you think isn't covered by the list here?
Not so much the broad goal topics, but maybe more of the individual points. So
Perfect.
do we do that at another time?
Yeah, we'll do that
Once we
next.
vote?
Yeah.
We'll do that next.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, no, I'm good.
Thank you. Councilmember Edwards?
I was looking to, kind of condense this a little bit too. When I was looking at economic vitality and fiscal health, it kind of led me into the revenue enhancement, but I also saw, if we were focused somewhat on the workforce housing, is that also being economic vitality and health. Housing could fall under it that way, but that not necessarily all forms. So that was something that I thought about. And then I came to also health and safety. That seems to come up for us a lot. So that was something that I thought about when we were looking at homelessness. And maybe like if we were talking about police and fire and emergency plans and some of the other things that were mentioned on the list that we saw earlier. So those were just some of the things that came out of my looking at this.
Okay, I'll say that in terms of workforce housing, housing is on this list, and so I would say that it would come under that. So if people are really interested in workforce housing, I would put points towards housing, and then we'll fine tune that in terms of the goal statement and the objectives as we have our discussion. In terms of public safety, health and safety, and you mentioned homelessness, I think that those are also items that could come under quality of life if there's an interest in, kind of having a banner, like kind of catch-all for those different items. And certainly some of the recommendations under quality of life are specific to police department and fire department operations. So that's what I would suggest, but if you would like to add one here, then you can suggest that for the group.
I'd like to add Morro Bay Elementary to quality of life. My thought, as an objective, or with that particular goal.
Right, okay. Do you want to? So there is an objective around El Morro Elementary under quality of life, but again, similar to revenue enhancement, we could take that off as a separate item if you like, or you can keep.
I'd prefer to keep it the way
Okay.
it is. So there's a definition of the difference of the two.
Yeah, that sounds.
I would just ask the question, I mean, all of these fall under quality of life. I mean, quality of life, I mean, it's kind of, it's baked in to all of them.
And so I think the challenge is if the council decides to go with quality of life, the challenge will be keeping the number of objectives smaller. Really be just the things that are the top priority for the city council, whatever those may be.
That was kind of where I was going with trying to separate it a little bit, making another category for us, and that's why I threw out health and safety.
I don't
know.
Yeah, I just feel like, in my mind, the less the less topics there are, the better. And you could add the, the different items under the broad topic, but it seems they're all competing with each other, so it's in our best interest to have less topics rather than more.
Okay.
Yeah, I would follow up on that. First off, I agree wholeheartedly with moving revenue enhancement underneath economic vitality, fiscal health. That's a no-brainer because revenue enhancement is integral to economic vitality and fiscal health. In my mind, I've narrowed this down, our list of goals, to 3. I think quality of life is, well, and you mentioned, Mr. Codron, it's a catch-all, but quality of life is very nebulous. So to me, that doesn't make a whole lot of sense to have as one of our goals because it doesn't really relate a whole lot to me. Obviously, the objectives underneath would provide further definition for that. But the way that I'm looking at our list of goal topics is the economic vitality, fiscal health is going to, it looks to me like that's going to be the more of the catch-all, and we can take our select objectives and place them under that. So I'll just cut to the chase. What I'm looking at this list that makes sense to me based on what I've heard from our public, what I've read, and the extensive outreach that the city's conducted is economic vitality, fiscal health, then infrastructure, and then Morro Bay Elementary. The rest of the items on that list have some associated topics that we can move under any of those, but those are the 3 that bubble up to the top for me, just cutting to the chase.
Okay, are there any other comments from council members or Mayor Wixom? And if not, we can jump into this poll. And what we'll do is take 10 minutes right now.
Could you repeat that, Jeff?
Well, I just want to be sure. I mean, I was proposing that we look at those 3, but I do want to be sure if we're going to do the straw poll that revenue enhancement isn't.
That's
right.
right.
We've crossed that one out correctly, and maybe. I suppose perhaps, is there anything else before we take the straw poll that we want to cross off of this list? I was going maybe a little extreme to the 3, but is there anything else that we want to cross off before we take the straw poll?
Could you repeat the 3 again, Jeff?
The three that jump out to me: economic vitality, fiscal health, infrastructure, and Morro Bay Elementary.
And that's assuming that revenue enhancement is under economic vitality.
Absolutely, yeah.
And also acknowledging that quality of life is all of those as well.
I still want to go back to, what about housing? Would that fit under that economic vitality as well, Jeff?
Yep.
So we'll pull that one out?
It's also potentially under El Morro Elementary
Oh,
is a housing component, just based on the current zoning. Obviously, there's people that want to provide input into that, and whatever happens with that property is a long-term project for the city to figure out what makes the most sense for the community. But housing is currently how the property is designated for, and a portion of it, could be developed as housing while preserving fields, while preserving historical resources.
Yeah, so that said, I think housing makes a lot more sense underneath some of the other major goals as an objective that might tie into that particular goal. Housing policy, I always use a phrase that it's akin to pushing on a string. We've been working on housing policy. Housing advocates have for the last 20 years, and we can continue to do it for another 20 years. In terms of the context of our goal setting, I wouldn't want to see it as its own goal, because frankly, we wouldn't be able to really accomplish that goal in 2 years or 4 years. But does housing fit underneath some of these other goal topics as an objective? If it may feather into the Morro Bay Elementary, it certainly would feather into economic vitality. So that's the way I'm looking at it.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so I think
We'll fill them out and hand them over.
exactly. We'll
Thank
take
you.
about 10 minutes and give the council time to
Thank
do
you.
that. And when you're done, The clerk will collect those, we'll tabulate the results, and share them with the community.
Yeah, a little bit. Not sure how that's going to work numbers-wise. I can't count. I'm okay with that.
Thank you, everyone. We are resuming the meeting. Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Cauldron, turn it back over to you. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Mayor and members of the City Council. So we've tabulated the votes, and everybody is very much in alignment. We probably could have done this by consensus without the poll, but sometimes the poll is helpful for identifying minority ideas that council members want to make sure to get out there. So I didn't want to skip that part, but there is great alignment here on 3 goals, the topics being economic vitality and fiscal health, infrastructure resiliency, and El Moro Elementary. What I've done is identified the, sorry, there's a little bit of a typo there, but identified the objectives that in the recommendation and in the staff report come under each of these goals. And so that's part of our work today, is to decide if those are the right ones, if those are the objectives that you'd like to see under each goal. In addition, each of these goals have goal statements, and we want to make sure that the council is comfortable with the goal statements. Now, nothing that is decided here is really set in stone. You can adjust language when the budget comes to you. It's going to come to you with much more clarity about what resources can be put to each of these items, and you may wish to make adjustments at that time. But this is an important step in that process. So to continue the conversation, I'd like to look real quick at the goal statement for economic vitality and fiscal health. And I'll scroll back in the presentation in order to do that. And the goal statement is a vibrant and active business community supported by coordinated strategies for economic vitality and fiscal health that creates the conditions for individual business success and the long-term fiscal health of the city. And what I'd like to do is just understand if this goal statement is acceptable to the City Council, if it's way off base and you'd like to see lots of changes, or where the council is at relative to this goal statement.
Is adequate, but under the objectives, I think I'd like to change a couple, like to add in the revenue enhancement as part of the objectives, you know, like what we were talking about.
Okay, so and revenue enhancement as a topic, and then we'll identify
That looks like.
methods for revenue enhancement. And would you replace any of these existing, sorry, trying to get my cursor up here. Would you replace, for instance, planning and building permit services with?
I would replace long-term financial plan, and the reason being is that this should be included in the city manager's, finance director's forecast.
But it's still a goal. It's still a goal. You're talking about how you want to direct it, but it's still a goal. They're not in any priority, right?
No.
Just listed. period.
Well, I mean, I guess I would say, no, they're not.
Yeah.
They're not.
Because I wouldn't agree necessarily with the priority of it, but.
Right.
But what that's there. But yeah, I think you're talking about the next step is going to be the actions that follow it. Is that correct?
Yeah. Okay. Any comments on the goal statement? If not, we can move to infrastructure. And the infrastructure goal statement is an infrastructure program that includes regular maintenance to prolong the life of existing infrastructure, streets, buildings, structures, equipment, while implementing a capital improvement plan that prioritizes new projects in alignment with available resources. In terms of infrastructure resiliency, the thought around having a capital improvement plan is one where you really know well in advance what capital projects are being delivered, and so you have the ability to move through those in a more efficient manner, in a way that is more communicative, where the community understands what the city can afford from year to year and what the staff can deliver.
Well, you know, again, as Council Member Edwards stated, harbor revetments, we already did that. I mean, we already have the report. It's already,
Well, there was a report, but there's a lot of work now that needs to be done.
Correct.
Particularly, and I'll turn this over to Public Works Director Kwolek, but in the area of identifying what some funding sources would be and what the scope of those projects would be, how you can't do it all at once, so how you might break it down. These are, again, this is a four-year goal potentially. So it's about putting a strategy in place to deliver the improvements. Anything to add? Okay, thanks.
Mayor, may I ask a question? Mr. Codron, I guess where I'm getting a little confused is that are we going to be, just to clarify, are we, once we do this, going to go back and talk about actions? Or, okay, we're
Yeah.
going to do that.
Yeah, we are.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I think it's a loading order. We want to start with the goals, make sure everybody's comfortable with the goal statement, and then move to the next step. And we're making great progress, so I appreciate it.
I don't know that I'm in love with the idea of it, harbor revetments as much as harbor infrastructure as a whole, because the harbor is an enterprise fund separately, still part of what the goal is of the infrastructure resiliency, but you're identifying just one aspect of, of what we need to address there. The revetments certainly, but it has a whole different life. So I just want to make sure that it's encompassing many of the needs that we have with our infrastructure of the harbor and not specific to just revetments, I guess.
Great. Okay, we'll come back to that.
Can I clarify, because I'm confused again? Are we just doing the goal statements, or are we
Yeah.
doing the objectives?
We're just doing the goal
Okay,
statement.
so those are the objectives. The
others, yeah.
the things to the right are the objectives.
That's right.
Okay, so we're just talking about the goal statement right now.
Thanks, yes.
Okay.
Okay, and then El Moro Elementary is on here, and I have a draft goal statement. Work with the San Luis Coastal Unified School District to acquire the Moro Elementary School site for the purposes of preserving community access, historic preservation, and housing development consistent with the city's general plan. So that's the statement, and then, these steps here in terms of an acquisition plan, engaging the community about uses on the property, looking for grants for the acquisition. These are all objectives that the city would pursue to accomplish the goal. But just the goal statement right now.
Looking at the goal statement, I'm concerned that if we're not able to acquire the property, one of the things that the community has talked about, and we've talked about, and our community development director has helped us understand, is that we can have an integral part in the permitting and planning process moving forward. So looking at the goal statement, I would suggest adding work with San Luis Coastal Unified School District to acquire the Moro Elementary School site, to acquire or assist in development. So to acquire or assist in development. Just as sort of a contingency in case we're not, yeah.
And also, I would suggest that we, for the purpose of preserving community access, historic preservation, and/or housing development consistent with the city's general plan. No, it says and.
There's consensus on those changes? That sounds great. Okay, we can make those. All right, so we have the goal statements. Excellent. I am going to, if we want to go ahead and put El Moro Elementary up here, I'm just going to modify that. There you go.
Mr. Caudron?
Yes.
I'm wondering if we should start with the infrastructure one, just because it seems like it's the least. Oh.
I have a question while we're actually doing this. To the right, where it says acquisition plan, I'm wondering, should there be something included if, in case we didn't acquire it, some sort of? Yeah. Well, I just didn't.
Yeah,
That's not the same as
we'll talk
acquiring,
about that.
though.
I'm going to show all of the objectives in terms of what the full text is, and then we can work on that. There was a suggestion to start with infrastructure. Is everybody okay with that? Great. And I'm going to share my screen again. Or actually, you can keep sharing and just go to the infrastructure goal.
Mr. Cauldron, I think that we need to start with the financial before we go to the infrastructure.
Okay.
Yeah, let's
I
start
mean-
with number one, which is
That makes sense,
unanimous, I
too.
think, in the votes there for all five of us,
I'll take it. Yeah.
because everything else is going to derive from that.
Okay. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Apologize, there's just, the computer is not keeping up.
While you're waiting, do we get to find out what the ultimate rating of the goals were?
Yes, there was really strong consensus across all three of the top goals. Economic vitality, fiscal health, infrastructure, and El Moro Elementary all scored 25. So there was the one caveat is the mayor provided 2 points to housing, but then also drew an arrow to El Moro Elementary. So kind of split between housing and El Moro, but for the purpose of housing, it sounds like.
Okay, thanks.
So, yeah. Okay, this, I'm going to close that. Shoot. I'm not online, so.
How can you see it? I know, it's really hard. I could adjust the lighting. I'm not going to look at it.
Looking at a black screen.
Right now, I'm just working off paper, so.
Well, can I do the snack doodle? Can I?
What did you call it?
Snack doodle.
Snack box. Like a tackle box.
Good idea.
Okay, my computer is up to speed, and we're looking at the economic vitality and fiscal health goal. And we're going to start here, and the conversation is around what the objectives are. So these objectives are found in attachment 1A to the council agenda report, and they include increase events, general fund reserve analysis, the long-term financial plan, and planning and building permit services. In attachment 1A, there's more information underneath each of these. And depending on the council's decision today, those will continue to be fine-tuned based on what the presentation of the budget is. But increasing events, I can go ahead and try this again. I'm going to try to. Yep. See if that works. All right. So here's the full text then in terms of what each of these includes. There's more objectives in attachment 1B. But let's start the discussion on these, and this time I'll start with Councilmember Edwards.
Do you want to go on down the list, increase events? Is that how you would
Whatever
like
your
to-
preference is.
Well,
yeah.
I mean, I would say right there, just based in that description, for me, this goes back to looking at our chamber relationship and the economic development contract. So for me, this would be possibly reviewing and revising that contract to include this type of work. The other aspect that I'm looking at is that we do have an economic roadmap that was done in 2017. And this has actually most of everything we're talking about here tonight, including Morro Bay Elementary within it. And so I'm wondering, within this area, if we shouldn't also review and revise the Morro Bay Economic Development Roadmap, which is a living document that we have, and all of this conversation will come into that. It'd be a great lead-in. So it's just a thought that I have in terms of this whole area. It would bring in all the catalyst sites, it would bring in housing, it would bring in most of what's here that we're discussing. So it's just a thought to review and revise the Morro Bay Economic Development Roadmap of 2017.
And would that would be an objective on its own, or part of the increase events?
Well, it would include
It would
increased
include-
events. So I would probably say review and revise the Morro Bay Economic Development Roadmap to include also the Economic Development Contract, review and revise that. And then underneath that would be increased events underneath the Economic Development Contract. Because you have mentioned work with Visit Morro Bay, but the chamber is not in here.
Okay,
So that's where I'm at right now.
thank you. Councilmember Eccles.
Thank you. I don't like increase events at all. I would scratch that. It's not the city's job. We can support events. Much more importantly, I'll go back to what I've been mentioning since I've had the privilege of sitting up here the last several months. We need to take care of our asset. We are a visitor-serving destination town, and our asset is our natural beauty and our built environment. Having had a business down there for almost 15 years, a successful business, the events are a little bit of a sugar rush, but what is sustainable are people that come back to our town again and again. Just last night, I was walking the Embarcadero on one of my power walks, and I spoke with two folks that were from out of town. And the folks from San Jose, they heard me talking to somebody else about boats, and they asked me what a boat survey was. So I told them what a survey was. Then I asked them where they were from, San Jose. I says, really, so what do you think about Morro Bay, and why do you like coming here? And they used the word that Ms. Dorfman used earlier, peaceful. They said, this is just the most peaceful, calm, beautiful place to come. So our discussion about character and maintaining our character is so important. And really, that's the balance. That's the balance that we're trying to achieve is we know we have to evolve. I hesitate to use the word grow just because it's a sensitive word, but we do need to grow and evolve as an organism. Otherwise, we will decay and stagnate. But growth doesn't mean necessarily runaway growth. We need to evolve and grow while maintaining that character. So to me, the events doesn't doesn't meet that at all, and I'm going to suggest something to replace it. The general fund reserve analysis and the long-term financial plan, those I would scratch out of there as well. We already do a 5-year forecast, and I believe we've discussed doing a 10-year, which I don't think has any utility. Imagine doing a 10-year forecast in 2020, January 1st of 2020. It would have absolutely no utility. So we already do a 5-year plan, and it's great, and we win awards for it. The reserve analysis, my understanding, that's in process anyway and should be. It should always be looked at. Planning and building permit services, we've got a winner there. So I would love to see that there. And then I'm going to add something or suggest an addition, downtown revitalization. And I did some wordsmithing last night with it. Enhance Morro Bay's downtown as a vibrant, walkable destination for residents and visitors alike. Support incentive programs and investments in small businesses, beautification of public spaces, and infrastructure that strengthen the local economy. Celebrate our coastal character and create a welcoming, connected community hub. This speaks to many of the items that were discussed by members of our community during public comment, as well as the polling that was done. I see Ms. Stewart in the audience. For at least the last 20 years, she's requested a bathroom in downtown. This speaks to that. It also speaks to a program that I've circulated around, a rehab for facade, thank you, a facade rehab program, an incentive program for facades. That's been very warmly received, and I put the brakes on it a little earlier, hoping that it would be encompassed in a more, in a larger program, so that we'd have more effectiveness there. So that one, and then I'm sorry I'm being a little lengthy here, but this one is tough, and I'm not sure that, I would hope that that first one that I suggested is a no-brainer for my colleagues. The second one, we've spoken a lot about city culture and a culture of yes. It's tough because it may not meet some of the specifics of goals. How is this measurable? And what is the time limit on it? So if it doesn't make it here today, I'll keep pounding the drum. But here's the objective that I came up with. City culture. Promote a culture of yes, one that empowers city staff to pursue creative solutions, embrace innovation, and deliver exceptional service within existing constraints. This culture encourages a proactive can-do mindset where challenges are met with collaboration and a shared commitment to community success. Create a workplace environment rooted in trust, accountability, and a shared sense of purpose, where saying yes means finding a way forward whenever possible. So this would fall squarely on the back of the city manager to implement throughout the department heads and the entire city structure. So those are my two suggestions. So my suggestion is get rid of events. Well, get rid of all of them that are on there except for planning and building permits, add downtown revitalization, and add city culture.
Can I ask you?
Thank you for indulging me.
Councilmember Eccles, about the economic roadmap that exists already, if that's, do you find that that could be a basis for some of this work going forward?
I have substantial hesitation, respectfully. A lot of folks told me last year about staff included the $1 million shelf in City Hall, which alludes to a series of studies that if you add them up over the last 20 years, it's $1 million worth of studies that are up on a shelf collecting dust. I don't know how effective the economic development roadmap has been in assisting us over the last 5 years. So my fear would be that that's more general, that's more talk, more planning. A downtown revitalization program itself is more action-oriented and goal-oriented.
Okay. I want to share just some of the thoughts that I have about the $1 million shelf and that type of thing, is when we start talking about new initiatives and new programs, those are typically preceded by consultant work, by plans, by developing the program in a way where it can be successful. Those existing plans and documents that you have, and I would put because you mentioned downtown revitalization, I would also put the downtown and waterfront strategic plan in this bucket. These are the roadmap and that strategic plan were done by really well-respected consultants. It's professional work. You may not agree with all of the recommendations, but what you have there is an adopted plan, something that takes a long time and a lot of money to get to. And it's a resource for you in order to use as the basis of doing more work. And work that isn't planning work. It isn't, doing environmental review over a new document or program. All of that already exists and it's ready to be operationalized. I hear your sentiments about like the last 5 years, and I always just have to remind folks about where we were 5 years ago, which was in the middle of a pandemic. These plans were adopted couple of years before that happened, and since that time, they really haven't been revisited. And so it's just as a facilitator in trying to help the council understand what resources you have available to accomplish these important goals and objectives. Those are really important documents that you have to build on to work with.
Yeah, respectfully, my follow-up to that would be, I'm viewing these goals as more specific, shorter term, more actionable, more granular in nature, something, for instance, a facade improvement program, as opposed to an overarching 5-year development roadmap that would give us suggestions like enhance your downtown economic vitality. So this is just, I think for this, well, I'm not sure where this conversation is going.
No, I understand.
I don't favor the
let me,
development roadmap as a goal. I do favor downtown revitalization as an objective, I should say.
So
Thank you.
I just brought it up because another council member brought it up, and what I just wanted to highlight that those are resources. They do have programs in there to draw from. But I understand your clarification about downtown revitalization as an idea for a program, so.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah. Councilmember Landrum.
I agree with much of what Councilmember Eccles just said. I like that. I'm not in favor of the, so hard to find these things on paper. The 10-year,
It's a long-term financial
the
plan.
long-term, yeah. I think that is, I agree that 10 years is kind of.
Well, I want to clarify, we do have a 10-year fiscal forecast. Some cities do 5 years, some cities do 10. You were presented with a 10-year
And isn't that
February 25th.
Isn't that one of the objectives?
Well, this next one is the long-term financial plan. So that's another whole level of financial planning that is considered very valuable for the city, and I'd be happy for the finance director, Conrad, to share some thoughts on, why that's elevated on this list.
Hi there. Yes, I did have this for a goal for myself, for my department, because we are looking ahead at the years to come, and sure, it's unpredictable. And I think our facilitators had said recently that as soon as you create the forecast, it's obsolete, right? And I completely agree, it's a real challenge. But anyway, we have developed the 10-year forecast for now, as our policy states that we will do. And looking ahead, I see that some planning ahead would be really beneficial, especially looking at revenues. And so revenue enhancement to me would come in as part of that plan. If you don't want to adopt it as a goal, I would still like to do it, just as part of my job.
Thank you. And this, I apologize if this sounds, I don't really know. Is this like something that takes 2 years?
It will take some time because we envision to have some professional to help us develop a plan, looking at the 10-year forecast and look at city's needs and then to come up with some strategic plan. The city had something similar years ago, but it was a lot of things to change and yeah, so you'll take some time if you do it strategically.
Yeah, I just, to me, that, I don't know why it would take so much time. I am not in favor of the increasing events. I don't think that is the place of the city to be part of that. Maybe a volunteer organization, should do something like that. And let's see, the risk analysis, is that considered this? Is that similar to the? Sorry, I'm looking at two different. I'm combining the lines. The fund reserve analysis, is that similar to the long-term financial plan?
The fund reserve analysis is separate from the long-term financial plan. However, the long-term financial plan could include the option of looking at reserve, either you increase or reduce.
And again, is that something that takes 2 years, the general fund reserve analysis?
I don't think that perhaps is a bit simpler. That's because it's more. Is rather it's not as nuanced as long-term financial plan. Because long-term financial plan, you need to look at your revenue, look at your needs, look at your strategic goal, and it was more nuanced. However, the reserve just you need to give a direction what you want to accomplish, and then you give you some options, and then by the end of the day, it's up to the city council. You can pick and choose, and then also I believe the general plan reserve analysis also we can borrow some of the government finance officers associations guidance to come up with analysis.
Okay, and then with the planning and building permit services, I like that, perform outreach and engagement. I mean, I think that we should look to, for business retention within that maybe, and maybe make it easier for businesses to do business in Morro Bay. Maybe review our sign ordinance, make business licenses easier. And possibly even review the cost of that. It's my understanding that businesses are charged based on how many employees they have, and to me that seems, that is not business enhancing.
I was gonna clarify that maybe that's a business license based on employee member. This one planning and building
Yes,
permit
you're right.
services.
I guess they're. I have my notes here, and they're not very. I'm just kind of rambling right now.
And I wanted to follow up on Councilmember Lindrum's comments regarding planning and building permit services. And I see the need of a customer service improvement. And I would say that these options was brought up through our extensive engagement with our public and with you, with council members, and also with staff members. So they are a combination of the things that being brought forward to us, and facilitator helped use the tools to get them organized. So they are here. It's being because they are the key points being brought up by a lot of people, and I wanted to back to the service part. When these comments were brought up, that was just a couple months ago. We started this process, and one of the part is. We have done some changes since a couple of months ago. For example, the business license we're bringing back in-house. So that experience was still being evaluated. We just started, and also the community development. We have a new director, and the programs. has been evaluated as well. So I wanted to say that we understand the city councils or the community's comments regarding the services need to be quicker, be more friendly, be more responsive. And I to borrow the yes we can culture, that's something that I and then the department head and I have been working on. We're very proud of ourselves being responsive to our citizens' needs. So I think if there, I'm gonna challenge department, the community development director and the finance director and all the other department directors to look into ways to be able to create more seamless customer service experience. So I felt like this is kind of like earlier you were saying on a quality of life, this is baked into what do we do every day. So you can.
I agree. I like that. And as you and I discussed, I think that we're really lucky here to have a staff that is so intelligent and creative. And really, we are all innately creative. And I think it's a good idea to, when we are in government, we tend to just follow rules, and we have to do that. But it's good to exercise our creativity as well, and maybe we can, within that, kind of encourage that creativity. Not necessarily that it's going to be the option every time, but it's just, coming up with different solutions that are kind of outside of the box.
So what I'm going to ask of the council now is we're going to try to raise the level of the conversation from less detail to a little bit more general so we can make progress. But what I've heard so far is some alignment around downtown revitalization and promoting the culture of yes. And we want to continue to hear from every council member as it relates to economic vitality, fiscal health. When we're complete with that, we'll see where there's consensus on the different items or what needs to be talked about further.
Okay, can I add also that within the beautifying, or whatever that was you said, can we also include to make efforts to beautify the town and also focus on the entrances to Morro Bay?
Yes. Again, those are details we don't have to drive into right now. Okay. So if downtown revitalization, if that covers it for you, then just keep in mind those individual projects.
Well, the entrances to the town aren't really downtown, though. How do you?
Right. Well, I'll highlight that actually the Downtown and Waterfront Strategic Plan includes that as a strategy and identifies the locations that would be sort of ideal for signage.
Of both entrances to town?
Yeah, a number of entrances, yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Councilmember LaFay.
Just a couple things. I don't have a problem eliminating events, but we as a city need to work in conjunction with the nonprofits and Visit Morro Bay to create an event management policy. For instance, the Kite Festival, we had a problem with circulation. There is nothing that states that we as a city provide circulation issues. So we had to work that out. So we need an event policy that states, because we are the place that holds these events, and so we need to tell any event that comes in, this is what you need to pay, this is how you're going to get circulation, and so we're going to enhance the event, but people are going to know what they have to pay beforehand. So we need an event management policy, period. I don't know if that's a goal, but if we're going to try to create events, because that seems to be the consensus with the community in trying to enhance revenue, we as a city need to have that as an element. And then the second thing, on the permitting process, I would like to entertain a motion that we, in the planning department, if we do a commercial permit, we have a timeline that we have to issue that permit, or the fees will be reduced to the commercial business owner. Good example, I talked to a person, and I know that most of the council knows, it took them 11 months to get their permit. The cost of lumber increased almost 45%, and of various other costs. So we as a city need to say, you're going to come in here, you got plans that are approved, you're going to get your permit in 7 months or 6 months. I would like to basically maybe even see if we could do that, which would really help out the concept of we say yes.
So I have a little bit of experience in this area, and I just want to share some thoughts on that. In my experience, the most important thing for business owners, contractors, developers to understand when they go into the process is what are the timeframes involved. So agree and understand with your perspective. At the same time, in any given permit that you look at, it is a two-way street. Okay, so sometimes plans come in and they're fantastic and they're ready for action, and a lot of times they come in and they need a lot of work. And it takes time for that work to be done on the city side in terms of plan check and evaluation. Sometimes it goes back to the customer for months before it is resubmitted. And when it's resubmitted, that person is like, I want, my recheck done tomorrow. So it's a very challenging relationship. What is suggested in terms of the objective here in terms of outreach and engagement with customers as a way to identify where those customer improvement enhancements can be. It's really about giving the new director time to understand what the permit process is and be able to communicate clearly what to expect when you come in and you submit that application. Just wanted to share those thoughts, and then
I was actually given that economic forecast, and it's a blueprint that we can use to, do everything that we're doing here. So I think it should be taken off the shelf and at least showed to us. I thought it was a very useful tool. So thank you, Cindy.
Okay. So before I go to the mayor, I want to just kind of set the table for you,
I
set the
shouldn't
stage
have said
for
I'd wait
you.
and go last every time. What was I thinking?
So in terms of the discussion, there isn't majority support for every item, but there are, council members that support increased events, and that is very strongly supported by the community in terms of what the responses were through the survey. There is support for downtown revitalization. There's support for looking at planning and building services, and there's support for promoting a culture of yes. And so those 4 items could be we can replace general fund reserve analysis and long-term financial plan. We can rework those other ones based on the input you've provided so far. But the understanding is that financial work should be done, or that you support that work being done, maybe just not listed as a goal. So with those 4, and I think also in terms of using existing documents, I think that's something that is a message that staff is hearing, that's something that's a resource for us to utilize. So where we're at right now, Mayor Wixom, is with increased events, downtown revitalization, planning and building services, and promoting the culture of yes.
Thank you, Mr. Cauldron. I'll start with starting the culture of yes. I think that it actually is encompassing of all the things we're talking about within this recommendation of our economic vitality. But I see, for me, it's more of a mission statement, a city mission statement, than maybe a goal, because I think it should just encompass the things we do in general. In all of our, and as the city manager expressed too, that it's encouraged within the department. So I see that as a mission statement that would encompass everything. I agree that there's value in all those studies of that $1 million shelf, and certainly if we're going to look at downtown revitalization and facade improvement programs, I support that wholeheartedly, and I want us to use the documents that do exist, relevant or not, rather than recreating more documents and using those master plans that we have and the waterfront and the others, and starting at one end of the boulevard to the other, and the side streets that go out around it. I see great value in that. We've talked about it before for years about facade improvement programs and things. I think it includes cleanliness of the downtown area and all the things that go with it. That's the next level. The events, city events, I think that Visit Morro Bay has a great campaign going. They've just spent a lot of time and money to update all of that, done surveys. They have a whole new launch coming out real soon. Great little clip I saw of the video. I don't remember if it's on the chamber website or somewhere, but I don't think the city should lead on events or events that we do, light a boat parade and those and things, other things in tandem with nonprofits. I'm a bit frustrated that we don't have a event management policy, because I know when Councilmember Lander and myself came on 2 years ago, that was a conversation that the recreation manager had with the city manager that was back at that time, and a goal, and here we are 2 years later and still don't have a policy. It's not a good way. I've heard a lot of comments from a lot of nonprofits and events and things coming into the community that don't know what's going on. So I think we really need to focus on that. But as far as the that being a goal for me, I see the city supporting it always in whatever capacity that may be. I feel we need an event management policy, and again, that comes back to the culture of yes, and working with our partners, with the chamber and with Visit Morro Bay. The general fund analysis, you know, that the reserve, I very strongly feel that we need to address that, because that's a policy decision that we need analysis, so that this council, we took $1 million last year, moved it to paving, and so we need to have that information to make a good decision on what we should and shouldn't have. We've been at, you know, 20%, 25%, 30%, 33%, you know, at what point? And I don't want us to just decide we're going to take money because we have projects we want to do. I want there to be a thought behind it, so I support that. I'm not big on the 10-year goal, sorry. Too many things change. I understand the value of it, and also the fact that it's insignificant by the time it's done. My concern is about that that's most likely a very expensive process to hire somebody to do that. It's not something I think that staff has the capacity to do. I may be wrong, but they have to participate. The culture of yes comes back to the business license coming back in-house and those other things. Kudos to the city staff, finance, community development, the city manager, and everybody working to bring those things back in. I think it's a great first step in our customer service to the community. So I think that's it for me.
All right. So if I can summarize then, I think where the majority is, and we'll see if we can make this into a consensus, but where the majority is support for downtown revitalization that includes a lot of the information that Councilmember Eccles shared in terms of facade rebate programs and things to address beautification in the downtown and in other areas. Using the documents that exist will be helpful for that effort, so I want to highlight that because we've heard support for that as well, and I think that fits under downtown revitalization. We've heard support for planning and building services, so addressing those through engagement and outreach and setting accurate expectations with customers. And support for the reserve analysis. So I heard that, and I think that it's important and it's strategic to do, and I think it's something that can be done and shared with the council without being a huge draw on resources. So I would say that those three, downtown revitalization, planning and building services, and the general fund reserve analysis would be the core. The one additional one that you didn't comment on that I would add would be revenue enhancements. And so if you're comfortable adding revenue enhancements to that, and I think there's consensus there, then we have 4 objectives under fiscal health, quality of life that we can move forward on. But I'll now ask for comments on that.
I have a comment on the revenue, the beautification.
Yeah.
That is not just incumbent on the businesses, it's also the city's participating in that as well,
Correct.
not just with.
Yeah, and these will all come back to the city council as part of the budget for you to you know, really drill down into, make sure that the investment is correct for what your assumptions are and that it's going to accomplish the goal.
Thank you.
Okay. Councilmember Edwards. Yeah.
I do have a question with regard to the long-term financial plan and the revenue enhancement, because it was my understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, Emily, that would include looking at ROI on our current properties, where we could make future money with them, or whatever we do with them. It could go into revenue opportunities in terms of, like, we're already having CFAC look at revenue, opportunities there. And wouldn't that also take a look at, when we get to infrastructure, wouldn't that help us try to see where we're at with money toward infrastructure year after year after year? I mean, I'm just trying to understand, does that long-term financial plan hit that revenue enhancement category that we've all selected? I'm just trying to see. That's my question.
It could, if the council directed us to go that way, sure. But the reality is we'll have to look at these things anyway, within or inside or outside the context of a long-term financial plan. We'll have to study these things.
Thank you, because I'm just wondering how we would approach looking at revenue enhancements, because we still have not gotten to that point, and we've talked about it many times, but not really how to do it. So I guess I'm trying to figure that out.
Maybe I can call, I had a conversation with, Councilmember Lafayette on revenue enhancement, and please correct me if I misunderstood you, Councilmember Lafayette. I think the focus will be improve or enhance the projects or programs that will bring revenue. So that's you focus on things, on projects that will generate revenue, sales tax, or TOT, or so on and so forth. Councilmember Lafayette, did I?
Yeah, and again, the details will come forward with the budget. Okay. So
may I just quickly add a summary remark?
Yeah, it's 5:05, so I just want to be respectful.
I'll be brief.
Of
I'll be
the
very
time.
brief.
Yeah.
I understand why we didn't adopt a culture of yes, because it's a touchy-feely and infuses into everything else, but that also empowers me to bring it up every meeting for the next 3.5 years, so I will. And then secondly, with regard to the development roadmap, I want to just clarify. I took some slight umbrage because I thought we might be moving toward a direction of having that be a specific objective. It's not, and I just want to let you all know that I'm in 100% support of using existing documents. That makes sense. So thank you.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. So now I just want to check in with the city council. We've made it through one goal with the 4 objectives. We have 2 more to go. Would the council like to just keep going until we're done?
Going.
And
Thank you.
We'll try with the next 2 items to try to keep
Succinct
things.
and
Yeah.
focused, yeah.
Yeah.
So if you all council have your comments and things a little more succinct, so we can see if we can get through these, so we don't run into our regular meeting here. Thank you, Mr. Cauldron.
Yes. Okay. So.
We're on infrastructure now, correct?
Infrastructure, correct. I'm just going to share where we are right now with infrastructure. So the council is supportive of the goal statement, and currently the objectives associated with infrastructure are the 5-year CIP, a focus on infrastructure maintenance, and some form of attention to the harbor. There's already been some discussion about that, so we don't have to be so specific. as to the revetment specifically, but harbor infrastructure is something, is a term I heard, and I saw a lot of heads nodding on harbor infrastructure. So in terms of infrastructure resiliency, I want to highlight a couple of other items. So if we go to additional objectives, there's the maintenance plan specifically, that is something of interest to the Public Works Department, as well as that improving their asset management and the front end of the customer service portal. And then water supply. And there is a recycled water project that's nearing completion, but this involves other aspects of water supply. So in terms of infrastructure resiliency, I'll start with Councilmember Landrum. And just, again, let's just stay with the topics of the objectives without diving too deep into the discussion of what each one entails fully.
Okay, so the 5-year capital improvement plan, is that, I guess I'll ask, is that a 2-year plan? Or are we, wasn't that what we already just kind of were introduced to, and then I think you're going to bring it back?
Thanks for the question. So what I brought, was it a month or two ago now, would be the very beginnings of a 5-year CIP. So a CIP is a plan, like we're planning out capital work for the next 5 years. And a lot goes into that. That means how do we plan out the funding, which grants are we going to apply for? Sometimes the grants aren't readily available yet. And that gives us a roadmap, so to speak. And then once those are agreed upon, then we don't add other work. And so that allows us to be efficient and effective in actually delivering the projects that we want. Some small cities don't have these kinds of plans. These are common in larger cities, but some small cities do have these sorts of plans, and it kind of focuses everyone on them, and it gives some understanding to the council and to the community about what they can expect in terms of capital improvements.
Okay, I'm definitely in favor of the infrastructure maintenance, the harbor revetments, and I wonder if the Embarcadero maintenance should go under here.
I think that would be under infrastructure.
Well, it was under revenue enhancement, so I don't know. I might think it should go under there. So that's it.
Thank you. Councilmember Eccles.
Yeah, thank you. I agree. Embarcadero management and maintenance should be under there. I do have a question on the goal statement itself. The second part of it, while implementing a capital improvement plan that prioritizes new projects in alignment with available resources. So we saw the list a couple of months ago of 30-something projects. I don't quite understand that sense that prioritizes new projects.
It's an extra word. Yeah, it's not necessary.
Okay.
So may I comment on that? I think one of the challenges we have is new projects will be added. We just learned in our revetment study that there's a really critical piece of the revetment that needs to be replaced in the near term. Well, how does that fit in with the 37 projects? And so I think what this is aiming at too is, well, what funding, resources, and staff would be allocated to that? So kind of looking at it realistically.
So maybe prioritizes critical projects? Or maybe it is just an extra word we don't need. I mean, the rational prioritization of projects seems what we need, but it could be a new project that is a heck of a lot less important than 30 of the other projects on your list. Just being new to me doesn't connote that it receives priority. That's why I'm asking about it. Okay. Great, thank you. And other than that, good.
Okay. Councilmember Lefebvre.
I have no comments.
On infrastructure, you're happy with those objectives?
I am.
Okay. Councilmember Edwards.
I am happy with them as they are right now, with the addition and the subtraction of the word new, for sure.
The cleanness. Clean. Is it under infrastructure or earlier? Vitality, right? Just want to capture that, the goal of keeping the city clean. And then I wanted to make sure either infrastructure or under the other, just want to capture that, because.
Thank you.
We're actually, yeah, okay.
I have
great.
that under the
Yeah.
downtown revitalization, yeah. Mayor Wixom.
Thank you. For the sake of just supporting the other four, I think we're good. Knowing that these are going to come back broken down, I think there's a lot of individual things that we can include, like the health and safety, cleanliness, which is what that is, or the other harbor infrastructure needs. The sidewalks are horrible. I mean, we can just go on and on and on. It's never ending. So thank you. I'm good with it.
Okay, then let's move on to El Moro Elementary. And El Moro Elementary has 3 objectives associated with it, and these are, strategic from the standpoint of this being a long-term engagement, right? The development of a piece of property like that, it's essentially greenfield development. There isn't a lot there in terms of infrastructure. So there is the acquisition plan, which looks at the city's financial resources and ability to make that purchase, or what are the strategies that would allow the city to make the purchase. Again, we made the changes in the goal. Let's see.
You didn't have that.
They're in mine. Let me share
Didn't
mine.
make the top
I've got
page.
that.
Oh, I thought he had alternative ones.
He did. Yeah, the alternatives. Mayor,
What were you doing?
Yeah, that's,
All right.
there's the revised one. Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
yeah, well, I have it somewhere.
Any discussion on this? We can start with Councilmember Eccles this time.
Acquisition, community engagement grants. Community engagement, I presume, would include visioning and the whole
Correct.
charrettes and all of that process.
Yeah.
correct? Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that looks good. Thank you.
All right, Councilmember Landrum.
We're on the goal statement or the?
No, just,
Okay.
yeah, supporting.
Acquisition plan, community engagement, and grants, yes. The only thing, I mean, I don't know if we want to include the historical, identifying it as a
Historical
historical.
preservation,
Okay,
right there.
all right,
Okay, it's done. Let's move on.
okay. I'm good with it, thank you.
Okay, Councilmember Edwards?
I am good.
All right.
Looks good.
Okay, and Mayor Wixom.
I'm good with it, too. The only thing that I would
no.
change is I'd like to have acquisition or, I just don't want to commit ourselves to buying it. That's the only thing. Somehow twist that in case we can't afford it or we can't buy it.
So I might suggest a partnership, that there is a potential.
Acquisition or partnership is fine.
Okay,
Thank you.
okay. So I'm going to make that final change, and then I'm going to share back the 3 goals and objectives. Did I miss you? Councilmember? Okay,
Good.
okay.
Okay, I guess maybe this would be one thing that would be later on, but people brought up changing the zoning of Morrow Elementary, and I don't know if, okay.
That's definitely part of the community engagement component. Go ahead.
Well, Michael is working on finalize the goal statement and so on and so forth. As a city manager that I am, I need to bring some reality here to the picture. The Mora Elementary School discussion is very exciting, and there's so many possibilities. I also wanted to let the city council, I wanted to just say that we have resources. We need to think about resources in order to do these things. The community development, I'm looking at community development director, considering the workload that he is already embracing, and talking about community engagement. If we're thinking about additional planning and additional discussions, that's going to take a resource, and which will translate to the budget allocation, the allocation during the budget process.
And as is the case with all of these goals, the details are going to come to you in the budget. And I think that City Manager Kimball is trying to set expectations for what you might see given all the other work that the city is involved in. So just to review, economic vitality and fiscal health, here's the goal statement and the objectives that a majority of the city council were in support of. The next item was infrastructure resiliency, and the only change here was to be more general about harbor infrastructure. So that includes Embarcadero beautification as well, which we heard from council members. And then the third goal was an alternative that the council voted to include, I think from the standpoint of really great community participation and engagement, highlighted this. I just want to say that's one of the exciting things about the goal setting process for the public is that they can see how their involvement and engagement can result in change in identifying a project that's worth pursuing for the whole community. So this would fit that bill. It wasn't one of the recommended ones, but it's one that the council chose. And so El Noro Elementary School, this is the goal statement. We've added in the partnering component to that, as well as assisting in development from the standpoint of not being able to acquire the property, and then an and/or statement as it relates to housing development.
Can I just add that to City Manager Kimball's last comment about Mora Elementary and the impact it's going to have on the department, the Community Development Department. Since we've only narrowed it down to 3 goals, I mean, wouldn't some of these other goals have had the same impact? Homelessness, housing, I mean, housing definitely, right? Wouldn't that have had an impact on, I mean, so aren't we just kind of, we're replacing impacts?
This is being the Mora Elementary School. This is new. This other one, the homeless, for example, the homeless the city has been working on, and probably it's not going to go away. It's there. There's mandates that we have to respond to, so we'll continue work on those. This one, on the other hand, is a brand new. There's some reference to this property, as Councilmember Edwards stated. It was included in this roadmap in 2017, and then also there's a bit reference in Plan Mora Bay. However, the detailed, the in-depth analysis have not been done. So in order to do these things, it's something new. So it will be added to the existing workload.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and I'll say just like adopting the goal is a big step in the right direction from the standpoint of messaging to San Luis Coastal. So the school district wants to know that the city is serious about engaging with them on the acquisition, and this helps a lot. So time is on the side of City of Morro Bay, and but this shows the school district that it's a priority. So with that, I think that this process is completed. There's no requirement or need for the council to take a formal motion on this. Is more of a workshop again. When the budget comes back to you, what you should expect is a focus on these goals in terms of similar information in the budget as it occurred in the past, but these goals are a little bit different from what you've had in the past. And all the departmental work programs and with the specific departments as well as other departments, we'll look for ways to respond to the conversation that the City Council had today and its ultimate decision on these goals. So I can't thank you enough for taking the time, for engaging me to do this work. And it's been an incredible pleasure of mine because the community is so engaged and really effective in their engagement. And I just want to, again, thank you. I appreciate it. It's humbling to do this work and to have you come to a decision, so I appreciate that. And I think City Manager Kimball has a couple final words.
Well, thank you, Mr. Cauldron. Yes, I echo Mr. Cauldron said that it is really a humbling experience, and it's such an honor to be part of this and see what a community responds, see the how 5 of you work together, and how see the department has the talented city staff work together to support these things. And Mr. Cauldron and all my staff has done tons of work behind the scene. What is shown is just wasn't shown, but there's more to put together, produce all these sessions that we have and the documents we have. I am also very appreciative that City Council had made a decision on the three goals and your objectives, and we can work it up and then put in some sort of a presentation and a flyer in form of a flyer and bring before the City Council so we can publish like we did with our past goals. And as Mr. Cauldron suggested, what we'll do is after this, I will flesh it out with staff, and we'll make a work plan, and then these work plan will translate into the budget development, and under each department would have department performance goals. So then that would be bring before City Council in June.
Thank you, City Manager Kimball. Mr. Cauldron, I think on behalf of the council, we appreciate the process. It was, this is my, from prior, and this my fourth goal setting from years past, and then the last 2 years. And I, hands down, this was, the process was much better. I felt much more productive. I appreciate the engagement and the process. Ms. Kimball, thank you to you and your team and the community for participating. We have 5 minutes before our regular meeting, so we're going to take a break, and we will re-adjourn at 5:30.